Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Welcome back. It's Talking Books and Writing and Stuff, where we talk about books and writing and stuff like that. And today we're going to talk about books and writing and food. Flat out delicious food. With us is Jenn Sharp, Jenn with two N's. So Jenn, is the second N silent?
Sure is, Dennis. Or you could say Jenn.
Okay. Jenn Sharp, and we're talking about the Flat Out Delicious, and it's brand new to the cookbook, to the book market in general. And right off the top, I've got to say, the book design is flawless. Wow, how did you guys come up with that design?
Oh, isn't it pretty? I had nothing to do with that, though. That was all my publisher, Touchwood Editions. They're out in Victoria, and they just have a phenomenal team. But the photos were by Richard Marjan, and he is from Saskatchewan. And those photos really make the book, along with that design. So, yeah, very, very pleased with it.
And it's Flat Out Delicious, put together by Jenn Sharp. And it's not, there's a lot of cookbooks that are recipes and then a little statement, but yours is much more than that. So tell us about the idea behind Flat Out Delicious.
Yeah, so it's Flat Out Delicious, your definitive guide to Saskatchewan's food artisans, and it's actually not a cookbook at all, but it's a travel log, is what it's meant to be. So it's inspired by my own journeys throughout Saskatchewan, interviewing and meeting all of these food artisans that are in the book. There's 167 profiles about the people growing, making, and producing our food. And so it's meant to really help inspire your own local food journey, to go and meet them and to see what they're growing, what they're doing, to purchase from them, to eat at their restaurants, and also to explore Saskatchewan. And this is the best year to do that, right?
Right. You got nowhere else to go.
Right, yeah. So there's maps in the book as well that outline where the places that are open to the public and have farm gate stores, things like that, are all on the maps. And the book is divided into sections, kind of splitting up the province. You can pick where you want to go. And yeah, it's meant to really, really inspire your own travels to discover this, well, flat out gorgeous province, Dennis.
Now, where did the title Flat Out Delicious is a great title? Where'd that come from?
You know, that came from my mentor and former editor at the Star Phoenix. His name was Cam Fuller, and he passed away tragically much too soon in December of 2018.
Yes.
But before that, yeah, we're all familiar with his incredible writing, and actually his wife, Danella, is putting out a book of some of his best columns, and I don't know how she would ever pick the best columns of Cam Fuller. But so, yeah, Cam and I brainstormed, and, he's just got he had such an incredible mind for a turn of phrase, and I wanted something that would talk about the flatness of Saskatchewan. Well, parts of it are flat,
yeah,
and also just
you get above.
Yeah, not all of it though.
No.
Yeah,
I know,
so he helped me. That was him. Flat out food are my social media accounts, and then Flat Out Delicious was the name of the book. And when he said it, and we thought, it was just boom, light bulb moment, and one of those glory moments of Cam Fuller wit and ingenuity.
I always liked his word nerd columns.
Those were great, yeah.
Yep, especially picking on the things that I like to pick on as well, so that's good. Yeah, the seriously, first day with my new lips. Seriously, Jenn Sharp, Flat Out Delicious, talking about the book. And how did the idea behind it was the columns that you did and in Journeys in Saskatchewan. But before that, what's your life story? Where are you from? How'd you get from wherever that was to where you are now? All that kind of stuff people love to hear about.
all the juicy bits.
Yeah.
Well, I grew up on a grain farm near Craik, Saskatchewan, so halfway between Regina and Saskatoon, thereabouts, and always grew up surrounded by farming and food. And we had a great big garden. We lived in the same yard with my grandparents. We were always, gardening and cooking, and there's a lot of people to feed at harvest and throughout the year on the farm. And just really grew up with an appreciation for good home cooking from scratch, growing food in the garden, and then also seeing what goes into growing large crops on a commodity scale, like grain and cereal crops and oil seeds, things like that, and just getting that appreciation for land and food and where it all comes from. And then during high school, I was working in the restaurant industry and all through university as well in Saskatoon. And there, of course, fall in love with food even more when you start working with chefs in independent restaurants and farm-to-table places. And I had the benefit of working in a lot of these places and just really seeing firsthand when a chef is completely dedicated to taste and a flavor experience, and he or she wants the best ingredients possible for that. And any chef worth their salt knows that those ingredients need to come from probably close to home or somewhere with really high food standards. So then you get that flavor and that taste and that nutrient density and the colors. And that's how you make a really vibrant, captivating dish. And so watching these chefs and what they create and getting into their creativity, it just really fired me up too for the possibilities of food and how it brings us together and the stories that we share around the table, everything else. And then I have had the benefit of traveling quite a lot and living in a few other countries around the world. I studied overseas in China and Bangkok. I lived in Spain for a few years, recently in Bali. And, every time you travel, for most of us, the first thing we want to do is taste the local cuisine and find out what are people eating here and what is indigenous ingredients to their area, how are they reinterpreting it, what are the tastes, the flavors. That's really the highlight of travel for me. I think it is for many people. So it's just informing me all along the way, the importance of food in our culture, in our sense of self, really so many facets of our lives. And then I was a journalist at the Star Phoenix for quite a few years and wrote a column called Sharp Eats. Such a good last name, isn't it?
Right. It's perfect.
And so that column, I focused more on Saskatoon and Regina. The column also ran in the Leader Post. And I looked at our independent restaurant scene and what our chefs are doing there and farmers closer to those two cities and telling those stories and doing my best to just give people choices outside of, your typical franchise restaurant and the food you find in the grocery store, just helping expand options and educate. And of course, educating myself along the way too, because there's so much to learn in this food world. And so then you fast forward to this little book baby of mine, I call it, and the project started in 2018, and it's part of a series that Touchwood Editions has done. So there have been food artisans books written in the Okanagan and in Alberta and for Victoria Island too, these travel log guidebook type of things. So that is where the concept came from, and I made it a bit my own. So I wanted to do this big road trip all over Saskatchewan, and Richard Marjan, who did the photos, and we spent 4 months thereabout on the road, meeting all of these people and seeing how they're farming, how they're raising their animals, how they're treating their land and everything else. Because that was a really important part for me in this book. I really wanted to highlight stories of people that are doing things with time-honored traditions by hand. That's the artisanal part. And that are also employing holistic animal husbandry practices, regenerative agriculture. I'm not a big fan of the the chemicals used in our food supply, and that's probably a conversation for another day, but I didn't want to highlight those stories in the book. So I needed to go and see them in person, and I needed to see how everything was happening. And again, that informed my own personal journey with the importance of this and of how to tell these stories. And then after that, the manuscript writing began, and now it's this book that we get to hold in our hands. What a story, isn't it, Dennis?
It's a great story. Jenn Sharp is with us. The book we're discussing is Flat Out Delicious. I stand corrected. It's much, much more than a cookbook. Are there recipes in there, though?
There's not, no. Instead of recipes, you get longer essays. Mm-hmm. So there are recipes in some of the other food artisan books that touch what is done, but in mine, I chose to do 5 essays that talk about iconic or lesser known ingredients in Saskatchewan, foods and traditions, cultures. So there's an essay about our wild forest jewels, chanterelle mushrooms, and there's an essay about a traditional Indigenous hunt, and there's one about my own background with harvest on the farm. So it's these essays that I hope, my goal was to kind of tie it together and flush out some of the things that couldn't be told in a 250-word profile about a food artisan.
Right. Well, I stand corrected. Flat Out Delicious, and it's a delicious-looking book. And I've been reading about it or seeing for what seems like a long, long time. Jenn Sharp's book will be coming out in June of 2020, and it seemed to me that was years ago, but you say it was only 2018 that the whole thing got rolling?
That was when, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's when.
Wow. Because usually books take a long time, like basically from start to finish, and you go through the editing and all this kind of stuff. The book will come out, blah, blah. But yours seem to take, I guess we've been waiting for it forever. But
waiting on pins and needles,
that too, yes. Well, I don't know if this is a New World's record or not, but this is the third person we've had on. You, Amy Jo Eamon, and Tommy John Eamon, all from Craik, Saskatchewan. Now, how is that possible? There you go. Brother and sister and another. Are you guys all the same kind of generation?
They are actually my mom's generation, and we're all, how are we? We're related through a second cousin somehow. I can't remember what it is, but Amy Jo and I were talking about it the other day.
Oh, well, everybody in Saskatchewan knows everybody else pretty much. So
yeah, that's very true, especially in Craik. It's a very small town.
Yeah, well, I've been there. Well, I've never been to Spain, and I've never been to Oklahoma, but I have been to Craik. So there you go. I even tried to sell chocolates to the school. Yep. I'm not a prairie kid. I'm a West Coast person. Grew up in Crescent Beach and White Rock, south of Vancouver there. So you don't have, I guess there's fish that is caught in Saskatchewan, correct?
Yes, our northern lakes are full of incredible wild caught fish. There's a story about one of our most long-standing kind of direct-to-consumer fisheries. He doesn't sell his fish to the market the main kind of fish market in this area is in Winnipeg, and it's the fish that's caught in northern Saskatchewan gets shipped there, and then it's frozen and pulled out from there. But he sells direct-to-consumer at the Saskatoon Farmers Market and to lots of chefs in Saskatoon, and he's at the little market box now. So yeah, he's got pickerel and all kinds of whatever's in the burbot and lots of delicious lake fish. And as soon as that fish comes off the lake, he does everything by hand himself. He fillets it and freezes it. Like, you cannot get fish any fresher than that. So yeah, it's delicious.
And I was just reading something the other day about the market is kind of, because of what we're going through currently, kind of dried up a bit. They haven't had a very successful season so far.
Oh, the Saskatoon Farmers Market?
No, the fish.
The fish.
Northern lake fishery, like Deschambault Lake and places like that. Just a bit of a hiatus for the fishing this season, so maybe that will kick in later on. We can only hope.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm stealing questions from a website. What was your secret to fighting through writer's block?
Go to bed.
I just stay in bed. I just say, oh, well, I can't write today. I'll stay in bed.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, no lie. Writing the manuscript was probably the most challenging thing. It was a long, dark winter writing that manuscript. But it was such a different. I've never written a novel. I would love to, but I don't have any experience with long form novel writing. I mean, this book is a collection of these shorter profiles and some longer essays, but it's definitely not a novel. So I think part of what the writer's block, where it came from, I felt this weight, this enormous pressure, because it's not my own. It's not just my own story in this book. It's the story of over 167 people that are in this book, and doing them justice and doing it in only 250 words, which, as you know, is a impossibly small amount of words to say anything of substance. Mm-hmm. Right. So I think that was a lot of where my writer's block came from. It was just feeling this pressure, self-imposed or not, but how I worked through it, honestly, was my yoga and meditation practice. That brought me back to self and to center and to finding my voice. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of days just went back to bed, just stayed in bed.
Well, it's interesting. It's called Flat Out Delicious now. Is it just for Saskatchewan people, or have you got distribution in a wider area?
Yeah, it's on Chapters and Amazon, so that could be, it's available as an ebook on Amazon.com in the United States. So it's available. McNally Robinson also ships all over Canada too. So I mean, the book is all about Saskatchewan, and for anyone wanting to come here and discover what is happening in this province, if they think that Saskatchewan is just flat and boring and it's the province that you drive through on your way to Alberta or to get east, then this book would be quite surprising. And I think it's surprising for people that live here how much is happening in our own backyard too.
Yes. In fact, the other day we were at the Sunnyside Dairy up there just north of Saskatoon. So that's a fascinating...
That's a great place.
Yeah, and it's like on 80 acres. And
yeah,
they've kept it through the family. The woman was telling me it's their parents' place. And so it seems to me that maybe somewhere in the future we go back to small... I've always got this title in the back of my mind for 40 acres and a quad. People could just get out there and get 40 or 80 acres, grow their own stuff, have a couple of goats and some chickens wandering around just like the old days. And the province is so big and so empty. Well, the whole country is empty, basically. We could take like the entire population of South Sudan and put it in Saskatchewan. You wouldn't even notice that there was an increase. So yeah, people around the world want somewhere to come to Canada, come to the prairies. It's empty and it's flat out delicious, according to Jenn Sharp, of course. And the book is flat out delicious. Just go online to find it. But you also have a web series. What's that all about?
Yeah, actually the second episode airs tonight on my Facebook page. So if you just search Flat Out Food on Facebook, then you'll find that. So it's a 2-episode series, and the last one is on the video section of that Facebook page. And this is really highlighting people's stories that were in the book and just flushing out the good food story. So it's called Eat Better, but not in the sense of, we need to get healthy and eat better. It's more like how to choose better plants, how to choose better meats, and the differences between some of the things that we might find in the typical grocery store and what makes it different from buying direct from a farmer and getting to know how he or she is raising their animals or growing their vegetables. So it's all about making empowered food buying choices and benefit, and lots of tips about how to do it on a budget and convenience, get your kids excited, and some good music in there too, and some chef cooking. So a little bit of everything.
Okay, and that's the web series Flat Out Food web series, and the book is Flat Out Delicious from Jenn Sharp. Just go online to try to find it. If you're in the Saskatchewan area, go to McNally Robinson. I think McNally has an outlet in Winnipeg as well. Do you have, I know it's like 160 some odd, and it's like your little kids. Do you have a favorite of the places you visited or stories you wrote about, or a couple of favorites?
Yeah, there's so many hidden gems in this province. It's really incredible. I talk about Harvest Eatery in Shaunavon quite a lot because this story is just so wonderful because they're out in, Shaunavon. I mean, it's a bigger town, but it's not huge. I think they're just over 2,000 people maybe, or maybe it's a bit bigger. Anyway, so the chef there, his name is Rusty Steens, and he and his wife Chrissy own Harvest Eatery. And Rusty is an incredibly well-trained chef, has cooked in some really great kitchens in, big fancy cities. And he's from Shaunavon, and she's from Victoria, BC. And after cooking, exploring the world, expanding their horizons, they opened this restaurant in Shaunavon, and it is some of the best food you will ever taste. And it's elevated and modern, but still rustic, comfort, down home. But it's just, everything is beautifully presented. They're friendly, and it's a place that you can go in and have a really decadent 3 or 4 course meal in your cowboy hat and jeans and feel completely at home. And he works with all his different ranching and farming partners around Shaunavon. So you get to know their stories while you're eating the food. And there's a butcher shop right down the street. That's where all his beef comes from. The local rancher and he are friends. So it's just like this story about rural invigoration too, and bringing life back into our small towns, because that's what Harvest Eatery is all about. It's showing people you can live and thrive in our small towns, and there's a lot actually happening in rural Saskatchewan, which, being from a small town myself, that is, like most small towns in this province, really slowly dying out. It's incredibly inspiring. So I love that place. Definitely worth a road trip there, and there's lots of good spots to stop along the way when you're going to Shaunavon. Swift Current Farmers Market is a really vibrant, fun place. One of the best farmers markets I've ever been to, actually. It was just so full of life, and you got all the different Hutterite colonies, and there's beekeepers, and there's a Dutch bakery that they roll out this huge cinnamon bun making machine and mini donuts, and it's just like a carnival atmosphere. And they're up and running right now too. Some precautions in place, of course, right, with our current commotion, but
current commotion.
Still get out there and enjoy. Yes, right. The current commotion.
That's a good one. So we've got Shaunavon's got Haley Wickenheiser, the Hunter Brothers, and now Harvest Eatery. So hey, what more can a place want? And I'm just so much fun having you with us today, Jenn Sharp. Flat Out Delicious. It's not a cookbook, but it's a journey, a tasty journey to the palate of your brain. So look for it wherever you can. And also the web series, Flat Out Food from Jenn Sharp. Jenn, thanks very much for being with us today.
Well, thank you for your time, Dennis.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.